Sony has released their brand new Dualshock 4 back button attachments. Is this the way to go for a pro controller now? Let's find out. So the reason that this is such a big deal is because for PlayStation players, there really haven't been many options for paddles on the back of a controller that are affordable to the consumer. Obviously, Scuf and Astro have their own versions of pro controllers. They run about $200, and that's starting at $200, considering Scuf offers a lot of customization options and different models. And then obviously, Xbox controller players have the Xbox Elite controller, which has, back buttons and just like a more pro controller feel to it, but also looking close to $200 for that. For me personally, for the last 2 years or so, I've been using the Collective Mind StrikePack, which is, I believe, $20 to $40 at GameStop, depending on when you buy it. I believe I got it for $20. And it's a really good attachment if you are only playing on PlayStation. Now let's throw it on my controller here real quick. It goes on the back of the controller and it just clicks into place, and now you've got paddles. And when I was only playing on PlayStation, this was fine. You had to set things up in a certain order. Like if you were using a headset, you had to plug the controller in first, but it did give you two really low profile options for buttons on the back of your controller. And for me personally, if I'm using them in a first person shooter, I'm assigning these to jump and crouch, so that my jump shots and my drop shots don't require me to take my thumb off the right analog stick. And a lot of people will do stuff like that. You could also assign it to some kind of tactical ability, or if you're playing Fortnite, you can assign it to building. If you're playing a racing game, you can assign it to e-brake. Any other button on your controller that you don't want to hit with your thumb, you can now hit with, your middle finger, your ring finger, however you hold your controller. This was totally fine until I switched to PC gaming with a controller. Suddenly, this thing was useless to me because you need to plug your paddles directly into the PC, and most games will not recognize your controller anymore. The workaround for this is that you had to open up Steam, configure the paddles in Steam, and then open every game you wanted to play through Steam. And I just noticed that introduced a ton of stick drifting. The controller wouldn't be as responsive, and it was just a total pain. Because now that I was on PC, I was optimizing my gaming for more frames, better graphics, better response, and just overall competing against better players. But now my controller is useless to me. So when I heard that Sony, back in December, announced that they were going to put out this, I've been sitting here and waiting for this for 2 months. Because this is a game changer. For one, unlike the StrikePack, the Dualshock buttons will go through the front of the controller. Now, when these are put on, they feel like they're part of the controller. Honestly, it's a little big compared to what I was getting with the StrikePack. The StrikePack paddles were narrow and they went right along where my fingers would sit naturally if I was just holding a controller without an attachment on it. But this feels right when it's plugged into the PC. And honestly, after a few games of playing with it on, I already forgot that the controller was bigger. It's just an adjustment period like any controller change you want to make. What Sony made sure they did here is they made sure that the front of the controller still had the headphone jack, and you are now using the extension, I believe it's called, port on the front of the controller instead of now, plugging into the back where you no longer have USB direct charging or PC access. So now all I have to do is plug this controller into my PC and it's ready to go. Once it's plugged in, you see the little light come on, and now you can see my preset. You can scroll through your presets and assign buttons to each individual paddle. All you have to do is hold down the button on the back for a second, and now suddenly you can scroll through what buttons you want to be assigned to to each paddle. All right, right now I have Apex Legends open on my PC, mouse and keyboard right now. And obviously the game's already open. Now before, if I was using my StrikePack, I would have to have opened the game through Steam with my controller already connected, opened the launcher out of Steam, and then opened the game. And then obviously there's a lot of issues when doing that. But now I can just take my controller, plug it into my PC mid-game. It's already connected, it's ready to go. And obviously the back button attachment has already connected. And now I'm free to just slide and jump using the back buttons, which is how I prefer to use it in this game. Because now I can focus more on moving around with my thumb and not so much clicking the X button to jump. So just showing that it pretty much turns your controller into a custom controller without any need to open any kind of third-party software. I could just plug in my controller mid-game and everything's good to go. So obviously the big question here is, do I think that this is worth it? I do. You can save 3 different button profiles on it. So, you can have your one for your shooters, you can have your one for, I don't know, sports games, or if you prefer to just keep things separate from game to game, and you're like, oh, I play Fortnite sometimes and I'd rather have the build button on the back. I also play Call of Duty, and that's where I'd more so want to focus on drop shots. You can just do that just by pushing on it on the back. You don't have to reassign the buttons mid-game. You can just switch your preset as you open the game up. $30 for something that essentially turns your $60 Dualshock 4 into a $200 roughly Astro CR40 or Scuf controller. There's really no reason not to try it at least once before you go out and spend $200 on a pro controller. Obviously there's gonna be people who say, well, like, just use keyboard and mouse. I play some games with keyboard and mouse, but some games I just feel more comfortable playing my Dualshock 4 because I've been playing those games for years on PlayStation. So, obviously it's not for everyone. You don't need this to play games, obviously. But in my opinion, if you were already looking into spending the money to get a custom controller, a pro controller, whatever you want to call it, this is much cheaper than what I think the next best option is, which is an Xbox Elite. If you're gonna play on PC and you were already thinking about getting a Scuf or something else, I think you should maybe take a look at the Xbox Elite controller first. It's obviously made by Microsoft, which means it's very Windows friendly. Can already be customized inside of Windows. But so far, very happy with this. I think it definitely beats the StrikePack in terms of compatibility issues and firmware issues. I had a lot of issues with this things where firmware went out of date and it would just disconnect mid-game. And obviously the thing I said about Steam, I don't have to do that anymore. So yes, I highly recommend it. I hope this helps guide you a little bit in what you were thinking. Maybe, is it worth it? Should I do it? And obviously if you don't like it, take it back. Like, it's not like a controller where you have to ship it back to the manufacturer. Try it for a day or two, and if you don't like it, just take it back to the store. It's pretty simple. So yeah, hope you guys liked my short little review / comparison of the new DualShock 4 back button attachments versus the FPS Pro StrikePack Dominator, technically mod pack. Yeah, hope to see you guys in another video soon. Thanks.